The courtroom fell so silent you could hear the ticking of the ancient wall clock. Judge Raymond Mercer's gavel had barely struck when he turned his steely gaze toward the young black girl standing at the defendant's table. Her name was Alana James, 15 years old, with the quiet composure of someone who knew exactly what she was doing and exactly what she was risking. Mercer, a towering figure with a reputation for being ruthless, was known throughout Fulton County as the kind of judge who didn't tolerate what he called disrespect from anyone, least of all a black teenager who dared to question his authority. But Alana was not just any teenager. She was well-read, sharp as a tack, and unshaken in the face of power. The charge? Interfering with law enforcement. The truth? She had quoted constitutional law to a police officer who had no lawful reason to stop her and her older brother Marcus as they walked home from a community rights forum. What Mercer didn't know, as he read aloud the charges with the same bored cadence he used for every juvenile hearing, was that Alana had no intention of letting the proceedings follow his script. When she raised her hand to speak, her voice was calm but steady. "Your Honor," she began, "with respect, I'd like to request access to the full arrest report and a copy of my Miranda rights acknowledgement." Mercer's eyes narrowed. This court does not entertain lectures from juvenile defendants. But Alana did not waver. In Regalt 387 U.S. 1, 1967, "Your Honor," she replied, referencing the landmark Supreme Court case. "It guarantees juveniles the right to notice of charges, legal counsel, and the privilege against self-incrimination." The judge's face turned crimson. He slammed his gavel down again. "Enough!" And then, without warning, Judge Mercer stood, crossed the courtroom floor, and struck her hard across the face. Gasps echoed throughout the courtroom. Her mother, Naomi James, standing at the back, clutched her chest, her mouth falling open in shock. Marcus rose from his seat, held back only by two bailiffs. The courtroom froze. But Alana didn't flinch. Instead, she reached into the cleverly stitched pocket of her blazer, a detail sewn by her mother weeks earlier, and pulled out a small phone. Without hesitation, her fingers tapped out a message to the one man Judge Mercer never expected her to know. The message was simple. Just two words: "It happened." What Mercer didn't realize in that moment of rage was that those two words were the match dropped into the powder keg of his career. Because Alana wasn't just a girl quoting laws from a textbook. She was the niece of Supreme Court Justice Elijah Vail. And this wasn't the first time Mercer's brutality had crossed the line. The moment Justice Vail's secure phone buzzed with that message, he knew. His hand trembled as he set down his pen. Those words had been chosen carefully and agreed upon signal for a scenario neither he nor his sister, Naomi, had ever truly wanted to imagine would come to pass. It happened. Justice Vail stood from his desk in Washington, D.C., his eyes tracing the rows of books that lined his office, the weight of history surrounding him. He unlocked the safe behind his desk, retrieving the manila folder marked simply, Mercer 2006. It held everything. Memos, suppressed dissent drafts, evidence of sentencing disparities, all pointing to the same pattern: Judge Mercer's calculated bias against black and brown youth. For 15 years, Vail had kept silent, believing he could change the system from within. But now, silence was complicity. Back in Atlanta, Alana was transported to a juvenile holding cell, bruised but not broken. She sat on the cold bench, silently reciting legal precedents under her breath to steady her mind. She overheard two guards laughing outside her cell. "Little lawyer thinks she's smart," quoting Supreme Court cases. Didn't help her much when the taser dropped her. But even as they mocked her, Alana's resolve only deepened. When the social worker assigned to her intake, Mrs. Lamb, arrived with her clipboard, Alana wasted no time. "I'd like to make my phone call," she said firmly. "And I want a copy of the charges against me." Mrs. Lamb sighed, clearly used to children who didn't know their rights, but Alana was not like the others. Every word she spoke was intentional, grounded in a knowledge of the system most kids her age never had the chance to learn. Outside the courtroom, Naomi James had been calling every contact she had. But when her brother Elijah finally reached her, the conversation wasn't one of anger, it was one of quiet urgency. "I'm activating the file," Vail told her. "This ends now." Within 24 hours, a quiet investigation began at the highest levels of the Georgia Judicial Oversight Committee. The whispers had started. By the end of the week, Risa Malin, a respected legal journalist known for her integrity, received an unmarked envelope at her office containing data that would later shake the entire judicial system. Alana had been working on something long before that night in the courtroom. What had started as a simple mock trial project had grown into a comprehensive research initiative on sentencing disparities in juvenile courts. It was called the Accountability Project. Armed with public case records and AI-assisted data analysis courtesy of her cousin, a budding coder, Alana had gathered enough to reveal a staggering pattern. Black youth sentenced to significantly longer terms for identical offenses compared to their white peers. But what really cemented Mercer's downfall was the leaked audio recording from a private judicial conference. In it, Mercer's voice could be heard joking cruelly about one of the black defendants in his court. By the time the youth tribunal, a panel of high school and college legal scholars organized entirely by Alana, began their live-streamed review of Mercer's rulings, the country was already watching. They didn't call it a trial. They called it what it was: accountability. They weren't there to sentence Mercer. They were there to shine a light. And when they presented the evidence, case after case, transcript after transcript, the picture was undeniable. For every Marcus Carter sentenced to a decade for shoplifting, there was a Timothy Peterson who walked free with probation for the same crime. The difference? Skin color. The tribunal presented their findings with rigor, composure, and precision. There was no yelling, no drama, just data, cold, hard facts. Mercer's legal team scrambled, filing motions to dismiss the tribunal as juvenile activism gone too far. Conservative pundits rallied behind him. But the numbers didn't lie. And the video clips of Mercer striking Alana in open court played on every major news outlet across the country. By the time Mercer stood before the Judicial Review Board, stripped of his robe and title, his career was already ashes. In the aftermath, offers flooded Alana's inbox. Book deals, speaking engagements, scholarships. But she declined them all. Instead, she focused on what mattered most to her, launching the Youth Legal Academy, a nationwide initiative to educate middle and high school students about their constitutional rights. Because, as Alana James knew better than anyone, silence protects power. But knowledge? Knowledge protects the people. And for the first time in a long time, the people were ready to listen.